Hi, hello everyone. I've got the great pleasure to have Joanna BRYSON, who is the university from Bath University in the Department of Computer Science. We heard a great inside round table about the governance of AI. Thank you very much, Joanna, for being on the mic.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We are going to speak about the two key points that you addressed in the first keynote about accountability and responsibility. How could we design a minimum framework variable about trust?
Right. So actually, I'm sorry to correct you, but the two things I talked about was accountability and transparency. And so if you have an adequately transparent system, then you don't really need trust. Trust is blind faith, but I shouldn't say blind. It's something that a community builds up between each other so that they know that a community has a norm of good behavior. And then every so often that's betrayed and trust collapses and it has to be rebuilt. With artificial intelligence, since it's all digital, there's the possibility of knowing exactly more or less what has gone on. Now, why I say more or less is because there's so much information that it can be overwhelming. But at least we can know what human actors did when they were implementing the system and why they did it the way they did it. And we can log what the system is viewed. We can see, we can have accountability in terms of, well, accountability. Let's talk about accountability before we talk about transparency. I already sort of just said that the problem with transparency is that you can have too much information. So clearly you can have too little, and that's not transparent at all. But actually, if you have too much information, that's also not transparent. That's actually sort of a form of obfuscation. That nobody, here's your 20 million lines of code, good luck finding out what went wrong, right? To get the appropriate level of transparency, you have to say, well, what are we trying to do with it? And what we're trying to do is make sure that we hold humans to account. And why do I say we should hold humans to account? Because humans are the motive actors in our society. And so what we want to do is make sure that people don't take actions that are damaging to the society or to individuals in the society. So what we're really interested in is how the human corporations or humans in general, individuals or groups or governments or militaries or whatever, that they behave in a ways that we can all sort of thrive together, right? So since what we're actually interested in is making sure that the humans behave well, we don't actually need to know the details of how the system works, the AI system works. We need to know that what people did was responsible. And so that's why we need logs for things like how did they write the code? This is basic DevOps if you're in software engineering, but AI has kind of pushed it off because of the mystical, magical, the AI will train itself, right? Children do not train themselves. They're an enormous investment that takes a long time, right? But AI even less so, because it's definitionally an artifact that somebody went to the effort of building as well. It's not something that happened over one night in a beer, right? So you have, I shouldn't be rude about that conception, but anyway, back to AI. The point is that we can keep track of who wrote which lines of code, why they did it, and that's just normal. We do that in revision control. What people haven't been doing enough is they also need to keep track of what data they use for training machine learning, when they use. Not every AI system is entirely based on machine learning. In fact, no AI system is entirely based on machine learning. You have to have a framework in which you put the machine learning. But anyway, not every AI system has any machine learning. But also, if you do have machine learning, then you need to keep track of what data did you use, where did it come from, how were you sure it was secure, or could it have been interfered with, who sold it to you, what were their motivations, right? You need to know when did you train it, how did you train it, how did you choose the parameters you used, how did you decide you were done? That's one of the parameters, is when you say this system is good enough. So what tests did you use to ensure that you were ready to release the software? And also, how do you monitor the system, especially if it's still running, like if it's still learning in some sense, if it's learning from its everyday experience, you need to monitor it all the time. Now this may sound like an overwhelming level of detail, but the point is, you could just have it all sitting there in logs for a reasonable amount of time. And what reasonable is depends on, again, the trade-offs of how much personal data might have been captured, is how long is stuff still useful. So, for example, whenever there's been a fatality involving a driverless car, we've all known, like within a week, we've all been able to read in the newspaper what went wrong, why it went wrong, what the car thought it saw, when the car knew that what it saw was, So, for example, the Uber one, that first the car thought that it was, so what happened was it hit a woman who was homeless. She was dressed in a very unusual way. It was 4 a.m, and she was pushing a bicycle across a highway with a speed limit of 40 miles an hour, okay, which is, I guess, about 60 kilometers or something. I don't know. So, if she could have died anyway, whether or not there was a driverless car, a person might have hit her too. But what's interesting, because it's a driverless car, is we know exactly when they first detected her, then what it thought, which it thought it was like paper was blowing across the highway. That was the first interpretation. And then as it got closer, it detected the bicycle, and it decided that it was a person driving a bicycle. And only with like about a half a second before it hit, it realized that she wasn't riding the bicycle, she was pushing the bicycle, right? And so that's like, then it said, oh, I'm going to hand control back to the human then, because this is a really weird situation. Well, in half a second, all the human could do was go what, and so the woman died. But the point is, we might have somebody remembering something, but actually with the human psychology, you tend to construct a lot of things based on what must have happened from this little bit of information you have, right? But with the AI system, we know exactly what happened, and we know why it was built for that to happen, right? So accountability and transparency are actually easier with AI if we keep this information. Now, you can create a system that is completely impossible to regulate if you want to, and so that's where it comes down to regulation. One of the things you have to regulate is for regulation, and the way you do that is by saying that the company is accountable for the system unless they can prove that they did due diligence, right? And that's how we do things with every other manufactured artifact,
When you speak about regulation, regulators themselves have not much more of them. Take background. How can we support them to address the key point, the pain point, to try to design the unprevisible, the future aspect?
Well, I think that's a really great question. It's really important that we do support good governance, because we all want to live in a society where we get rewarded for behaving well, and that where we can plan and have sufficient stability so that we can have companies and have families. I mean, our companies are made of people, right? So we want to be able to have some kind of stability in society, even though we want to keep innovating, of course. So what we have right now is the governments are trying to figure out what to do. So any company should be thinking about how to answer if they get the opportunity to contribute to people thinking about regulation and learn about it. Go out and find someone. I have a friend, Bob Lord. We happen to go to college together, but he's actually one of the geniuses of security. And he's like, he got hired by Twitter when Twitter got hacked, and he got hired by Yahoo when Yahoo got hacked, and now he's working for the Democrats in the Democrat Party in America. So but he says, look, there aren't enough people. Every company should have a security person on their board, a cybersecurity person on their board, but there aren't that many good cybersecurity people. But that doesn't mean you don't have a cybersecurity person on your board. It means you take someone really good and make it their full-time job to worry about cybersecurity, even if they aren't themselves competent to be the professional, right? They can still be someone who actually goes out and figures out what the issues are and tries to find the expertise and things like that. And I think regulation is another thing that's like that. You need to know enough about how governance works and how you're a member of a society, how these pieces fit together. And if you don't know it, you need to know someone who knows it, and you need to know when to engage. I mean, it's like Twitter, right? we don't all follow everybody, right? You can't listen to 7 billion people every day. But being prepared and being well prepared and knowing the issues, and then being able to and answering when somebody asks you a question, I think that's really an essential duty.
According to Tim Berners-Lee, we have just celebrate the birthday of internet.
No, the web.
The web, yes,
Yeah,
the
the
web,
web.
not
Yeah.
ARPANET, but the web, that's it. He tried to make a call for action to split the data, the storage, and also algorithm like in the banking industry, not to have a universal model, but to split between the retail banking and the business or asset management banking activities. If we make the parallel for AI, the storage and algorithm, it's a call to action who could be re-implemented fastly, easily, or it could be, in fact, such a kind of utopia because big players are big players.